I booked this Airbnb in rural Pennsylvania for a weekend getaway. Just me, my laptop, and some much-needed silence away from the city. The listing looked perfect. An old farmhouse, tons of space, and the price was unbelievable. Like, way too cheap for what you were getting. I should have known something was off right there. I arrived around 8 p.m. on a Friday. It was already getting dark, and the house was about 20 minutes down this winding dirt road. No neighbors for at least a mile in any direction. The host, this guy named Carl, met me outside. He was probably in his 60s, wearing overalls and a faded flannel shirt. He seemed nice enough, just a little too eager to show me around. "Make yourself at home," he said, handing me the keys. "I'm just down the road if you need anything. Cell service is spotty out here, but the landline works." I thanked him, and he left. The house was exactly like the photos. Hardwood floors, old furniture, a fireplace in the living room. It had that musty smell old houses get, but nothing terrible. I unpacked my stuff in the upstairs bedroom and made myself some dinner. Everything was fine until around 10 p.m. I was sitting on the couch, watching something on my laptop, when I heard it. A creaking sound, coming from somewhere below me. I paused the video and listened. There it was again, a slow, deliberate creak, like someone stepping on an old floorboard. My heart started racing a little. I stood up and looked around. The living room was empty. The kitchen was empty. I walked to the hallway and saw it. A door I hadn't noticed before. It was tucked under the staircase, painted the same color as the wall. Easy to miss. I walked over and tried the handle. Locked. That's when I noticed the scratches. Deep gouges in the wood around the doorframe, like something had been trying to claw its way out, or in. I stepped back, my hands shaking a little. The creaking stopped. I told myself it was just an old house settling. Old houses make noise. That's normal. I went back to the couch and tried to focus on my laptop, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Every few minutes, I'd glance over at that door. Around midnight, I decided to go to bed. I locked the bedroom door, which I never do, and tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I kept thinking about those scratches, about the creaking, about how Carl had been so eager to rent this place out. Then I heard footsteps, not creaking, actual footsteps, slow and heavy, coming from downstairs. My blood went cold. I grabbed my phone, but there was no signal. I thought about the landline downstairs, but there was no way I was going down there. Not alone, not in the dark. The footsteps moved through the house. I could hear them in the hallway now, right outside my door. I held my breath, staring at the doorknob. It didn't move. The footsteps continued past my room, heading toward the other end of the hall. Then they stopped. Silence. I waited for what felt like hours, but it was probably only 10 minutes. Then I heard the front door open and close. I crept to the window and looked outside. Nothing, just darkness and trees. I didn't sleep that night. At 6 a.m., I packed my stuff and went downstairs. The basement door was open, just slightly, maybe an inch or two. I could see stairs leading down into blackness. I didn't go near it. I grabbed my bags and walked straight out to my car. As I was driving away, I saw Carl standing at the end of his driveway, watching me. He didn't wave. He just stood there, staring. I called Airbnb later that day and told them everything. They refunded me, but they didn't take the listing down. I checked a few weeks later, and it's still up. Same photos, same description. I left a review explaining what happened, but it never posted. Airbnb said it violated their content policy. I did some research after that. Turns out that house has a history. Back in the 90s, a family lived there. One night, their teenage son disappeared. They found him 3 days later in the basement, alive but completely unresponsive. He never spoke again. The family moved out a month later. Carl bought the house a few years after that. I don't know what he keeps in that basement, and honestly, I don't want to know. But I'll tell you this. If you ever book an Airbnb and the price seems too good to be true, trust your gut. And if you hear footsteps when you're supposed to be alone, get out. Don't wait to find out who or what they belong to. I never went back to Pennsylvania. This happened to me last summer in Seattle. I was there for a work conference, and hotels near the convention center were insanely expensive, so I booked an Airbnb instead. The apartment was in a quiet neighborhood, about 15 minutes from downtown. 1 bedroom, modern furniture, great reviews. The host's name was David, and we only communicated through the app. He said he'd leave the keys in a lockbox by the front door. I got there around 4 p.m. on a Tuesday. The apartment was on the 2nd floor of a converted house. I grabbed the keys, let myself in, and immediately felt relieved. The place was spotless. Hardwood floors, a big window overlooking the street, a comfortable-looking bed. I unpacked and went out to grab dinner. When I came back around 8 p.m., I noticed something weird. The bedroom door was open. I was pretty sure I'd closed it before I left, but I figured maybe I was just being paranoid. I changed into comfortable clothes and settled in for the night. That's when I saw the light. I was lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when I noticed this tiny red dot near the ceiling. It was coming from the smoke detector. I stared at it for a second, and then my stomach dropped. That wasn't a smoke detector light. Those blink. This one was steady, and it was pointed directly at the bed. I got up and pulled a chair over. Standing on it, I could see it clearly now. A small black lens, barely visible, embedded in the smoke detector. A camera. Someone was watching me. My hands started shaking. I grabbed my phone and took pictures of it. Then I checked the rest of the apartment. I found 2 more. One in the bathroom, hidden in an air vent above the shower. Another in the living room, tucked into a bookshelf, facing the couch. 3 cameras, all positioned perfectly to record everything. I felt sick. How long had they been there? How many people had stayed here before me? What had this guy recorded? I grabbed my laptop and covered all 3 cameras with tape. Then, I sat on the floor, trying to figure out what to do. It was almost 10 p.m. I didn't have anywhere else to go. Every hotel I checked was either full or way too expensive. I thought about calling the police, but I didn't know if hidden cameras were actually illegal. I mean, it was his property, right? Then my phone buzzed. A message through the Airbnb app. It was from David. "Is everything okay?" I noticed the connection dropped in the apartment. Connection. He was watching the feed live. My stomach twisted. How did he know the cameras went offline, unless he was actively monitoring them right now? I didn't respond. I just stared at the message, my heart pounding. Another message came through. "Just checking in. Let me know if you need anything." I wanted to scream. Instead, I grabbed my stuff and started packing. I didn't care about the refund. I didn't care about finding another place. I just needed to get out of there. But as I was throwing my clothes into my suitcase, I heard something outside the apartment door. Footsteps. Coming up the stairs. I froze. The footsteps stopped right outside my door. I held my breath, staring at the doorknob. It didn't move, but I could see a shadow under the door. Someone was standing there, just standing there, not knocking, not saying anything, just waiting. I grabbed the chair and wedged it under the doorknob. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip it. The shadow didn't move. 30 seconds passed, then a minute. Finally, the footsteps retreated back down the stairs. I called 911. I told them everything. The cameras, the messages, the person outside my door. They said they'd send someone, but it would take about 15 minutes. I sat on the floor with my back against the wall, watching the door, waiting. The police arrived around 10:45. 2 officers. They searched the apartment, confirmed the cameras, and took my statement. They tried calling David, but he didn't answer. They told me I could file a report, which I did, and they helped me pack my stuff. One of them even drove me to a nearby hotel and waited until I checked in. I reported everything to Airbnb that night. They suspended David's account and refunded me immediately. But here's the thing, when I checked a few weeks later, he had a new account, different name, same apartment, same photos. I reported that one too, but I don't know if they ever took it down. I also found out I wasn't the first person this happened to. There were posts on Reddit, other travel forums, from people who'd stayed in that same apartment, same cameras, same messages, same footsteps outside the door. Some of them had reported it, but nothing ever seemed to stick. The police told me they'd investigate, but I never heard back. I don't know if they ever found David, or if they even looked. I just know that every time I book an Airbnb now, the first thing I do is check for cameras. I bought one of those detector devices that scans for hidden lenses. I check every smoke detector, every air vent, every shelf. Because here's what I learned. Anyone can be a host. Anyone can list a property. And there's no way to know what they're really doing when you're not looking, or when you are. I was traveling solo through Colorado last October, 23 years old, first time doing a trip completely alone, and I was feeling pretty confident. I'd booked this small cabin Airbnb about an hour outside Denver. It was supposed to be this peaceful mountain retreat, perfect for hiking and disconnecting from everything. The host's name was Michelle. We'd exchanged a few messages, and she seemed really friendly. She even offered to leave me some firewood and local trail maps. When I arrived Friday evening, the cabin was exactly what I expected. Small, cozy, surrounded by pine trees. The nearest neighbor was at least half a mile away. Michelle had left me a welcome note on the kitchen counter, along with the trail maps she'd promised. Everything seemed perfect. I made myself dinner, started a fire in the fireplace, and went to bed early. I was planning to wake up at sunrise for a hike. I woke up around 3 a.m. to use the bathroom. That's when I noticed something strange. The front door had a deadbolt that required a key. From the inside, I hadn't seen that when I arrived because it was already unlocked. But now, standing there in the dark, I realized the key wasn't anywhere obvious. I checked the key holder by the door. Empty. I checked the counter, the coffee table, everywhere. No key. A weird feeling settled in my stomach. Why would you need a key to unlock a door from the inside? That didn't make any sense. And where was the key? I told myself I was being paranoid. Michelle probably just kept it somewhere for security. I'd ask her about it in the morning. I went back to bed, but I couldn't really sleep. Something about the whole situation felt wrong. Around 7 a.m., I heard a car pull up outside. I looked through the window and saw Michelle getting out of her vehicle. She walked up to the front door and knocked. I went to answer it, but the door wouldn't open. The deadbolt was locked. From the outside. "Good morning," she called through the door. "Did you sleep well?" "Yeah, the door's locked," I said, trying the handle again. "I can't get it open." "Oh, right," she said, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "I lock it at night for security. Too many wild animals around here. Bears, mountain lions, you know. Just keeping you safe." My heart was pounding now. That didn't make any sense. You don't lock someone inside a cabin to protect them from animals. Animals can't open doors. But I didn't want to accuse her of anything, so I just said, "Okay, can you unlock it?" I wanted to go for a hike. There was a pause, a long pause. Then she said, "Actually, I was hoping we could talk first. Do you mind if I come in?" Everything in me was screaming to say no, but what choice did I have? She had the only key. I was trapped. "Sure," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. She was smiling, but it didn't reach her eyes. She was holding a coffee thermos and a small backpack. "I brought you some coffee," she said, setting the thermos on the counter. "Thought we could chat for a bit." "About what?" I asked, staying near the door. "Well," she said, sitting down on the couch like she owned the place, which I guess she did. "I've been watching you on the security cameras. You seem like a really nice person. Responsible, respectful." My blood went cold. "Security cameras? Oh yeah," she said casually. "They're hidden. For safety. I like to know who's staying in my property." I felt sick. She'd been watching me. All night. While I slept. While I changed. Everything. "That's illegal," I said, my voice shaking. "You can't record people without their consent." She shrugged. "It's my property. Besides, I'm not recording. Just watching. Live feed only." I didn't know if that was true or not, but it didn't matter. I needed to get out of there. Now. "I think I'm going to leave," I said, reaching for my phone. "No signal out here," Michelle said, nodding toward my phone. "Landlines. Disconnected too. I should have mentioned that in the listing." She stood up then, and I saw it. A knife, tucked into her belt. partially hidden by her jacket. My entire body went rigid. She saw me looking and smiled. "Just for hiking," she said. "Lots of dangerous animals out here, remember?" I took a step back toward the bedroom. I'm going to pack my stuff," I said, "and then I'm leaving." "You can't leave," she said, her voice still eerily calm. "The road washed out last night. Happens sometimes after heavy rain. You're stuck here until they clear it. Could be a few days." I hadn't heard any rain, and the road looked fine when I drove in yesterday. She was lying. I knew she was lying. "I'll walk," I said. "It's 20 miles to the main road," she said. "Through mountain terrain. You wouldn't make it." I didn't care. I'd rather take my chances in the woods than stay here with her. I grabbed my backpack from the bedroom, threw in my essentials, and pushed past her toward the door. She didn't try to stop me, which somehow made it worse. She just stood there, watching me with that same creepy smile. I ran. I didn't follow the road. I just ran into the woods, dodging trees, my backpack bouncing against my back. I could hear her behind me, calling my name, but I didn't stop. I ran until my lungs burned, until my legs felt like they'd give out. Finally, I stopped and hid behind a cluster of rocks, trying to catch my breath. That's when I heard the dog, a big dog, barking somewhere close. Then I heard Michelle's voice. "Find her, Duke. Go on." She had a tracking dog. Of course she did. I started moving again, trying to stay quiet, trying to think. I needed to find the main road. I needed to find help. I climbed higher, using the sun to orient myself, and after what felt like hours, I saw it. A highway, cars passing by in the distance. I stumbled out of the woods and flagged down the first car I saw. An older couple. I must have looked insane, covered in dirt and scratches, but I didn't care. I told them to call 911. They did. The police found the cabin later that day. Michelle was gone. So was the dog. They searched the property and found restraints in a hidden compartment under the bed, duct tape, zip ties, a journal with names and dates going back 3 years, other people who'd stayed there. Some of them were still missing. They never found Michelle. Her real name wasn't even Michelle. The property wasn't hers. She'd been squatting there, listing it on Airbnb under fake accounts, luring people in. The actual owner lived overseas and had no idea. I don't do Airbnbs anymore. I don't care how good the reviews are. I don't care how cheap it is. Because the truth is, you never really know who's on the other side of that door. And sometimes, by the time you figure it out, it's already too late.